we've been absolutely killing. That's more than most of our clients are generating. And all of the other clients that we worked with were either running ads, Instagram shoutouts. Those are pretty much like the two big arms. Sure, organic was there, but it never generated the same kind of volume. But our client was doing this organically with YouTube. And the best part is those leads are always high intent. There's a lot of offers out there that are commoditized, but you can never commoditize a brand. Anybody can copy Apple and basically produce the second iPhone, but no one's going to buy from it because it's Apple.
Welcome everyone to another episode of How to Scale an Agency. I'm your host today, AJ Quesada, co-founder of Revenue Boost. And today I'm excited for a special guest interview with Dan Bagniuk. Dan owns an agency that helps coaches and consultants scale, and he's worked with some of the top names in this space. He transitioned from just copywriting email marketing agency to something else with YouTube and email funnels, which we're going to talk about today. And he's an absolute legend. He's done some copywriting work for us in the past and is one of the best copywriters I know, hands down, and I've worked with a bunch. And what we're going to dive into today is what Dan's able to do for his clients is generate 100 to 400 booked calls per month with the YouTube and email funnels. So excited to dive into that as well as the story. And Dan, thanks for hopping on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely, man. So before we get into the meat, I always when I listen to podcasts, I always kind of knowing more about the guests and how they got into the business and all that. So I'd love to know more of the backstory. First, how did you even get into the agency world, or what were you doing before?
Yeah, I always avoided the agency world at all costs. Back when I was 18 years old, I ran a franchising business and I had to manage a team of people as an 18, 19-year-old. That went horrible. I had a bunch of people quit. I had a bad relationship with my team, and yeah, things kind of fell apart. So I had a very bitter taste in my mouth of being a leader. So when I transitioned into the copywriting world and the online world, I went through the usual path of writing inside of other agencies, just building out my copy chops, then become a freelancer, working with some big names. And then I realized okay, I want to continue this growth. I want to continue this trajectory. And the most logical solution was start an agency. But I sat on that idea for 10 months without doing anything. Because again, I kept thinking back to the time I was a leader when I was 18 and trying to manage team. I was like, man, I'm a terrible leader. And that was such a painful experience. That's what caused all the stress for me. I'm just not going to do it. And every single month for those 10 months, I was always like, I should start an agency. I would see content. I would see all these people starting agencies and whatnot. And I would always get the feeling inside, be like, I should do that too. It just makes sense. Why wouldn't I? But instead, I would distract myself with all these different opportunities. And yeah, it just got to a point where my mentor, we were chatting on a call, and he was like, yeah, it took me, I think for him, it was a year or 2 years before he actually started his offer that he really wanted to. And he told me how glad he was when he did start it. And he told me, for the sake of both of us, save yourself that time. And then I went to an event in Anaheim and I read Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield, and same thing, just reading through that book, I was like, man, I'm just running away from an opportunity that I know makes sense. And it's something I've been thinking about for so long. And that's kind of the moment when I just committed to it, hired my first copywriter. Didn't really work out as expected, but ended up hiring two other people. I hired two other people that were great. And now we're here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So what was the main reason you were holding off on starting an agency, just doing the freelancing? Was it just because you had that bad experience running a team? You more preferred I just want to work as a solopreneur?
No, it was all team. It just got to a point where I was so in the weeds with copy and everything that I was starting to get a little bit burnt out of it and a little tired of it. I was waking up and I was like, man, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I've always been very ambitious, always wanted extra growth. And again, I kept hearing the same message, if you want to grow, you can't do it alone. You need a team. And I know there's solopreneurs out there that are making millions of bucks. I tried to be like that. I tried to, aspire to be like that. But I also just recently realized, as I was just trying to fall asleep, that something that drives me is people in general.
Yeah.
And that providing experiences for other people, mentoring other people, and just spending time with them, even with my clients. Now that I don't have to do the work, I have so much more bandwidth to create a deeper relationship with our clients, but then also consult them on higher level stuff, which is something I genuinely enjoy. And I've been enjoying the process a lot more. So it was really just team and me telling the false story again and again in my mind that when I was 18, 19 years old, years ago, I was a bad leader. But of course, I've had years of experience and wisdom built up. It's I had this weird notion that I couldn't change or I couldn't improve.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've learned the same thing too. It's leadership is a skill like anything else, right? Like we're pretty much all bad leaders at the start. I remember my first like few employees, I definitely fucked up in every way possible with them. But yeah, you just learn through experience, just like how you first learned copy, right? Just a matter of putting the reps in.
Exactly. You got to eat shit first and then you'll get better. So,
Yeah, definitely. And even honestly, man, even the solopreneurs, like the solopreneurs that do make millions of dollars, like they still have like some team. They still have assistants or VAs. They kind of just like say they're a solopreneur, but like you can't be doing millions of dollars just as one person unless you're working like absolutely 24 hours a day and killing yourself. I think it does sound sexy to a lot of people, like, oh, just be a solopreneur and not have to worry about a team, just do the work you love. But it doesn't really work very well in theory if you're trying to scale. And no matter what, you always end up having to do those low level tasks, right? Like admin, invoicing, client reporting. So, it's like you always end up just doing the things that like you could easily pay someone $5-10 an hour for. So I think there's a lot to be said for like, if you don't really want to have a big business, you just want to have a small lean team. But to me, it's like silly just to be a solopreneur and just doing those low level tasks, right? You can't avoid them.
yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to get tired of some of the work that you're doing, and there's a lot more enjoyable things that you could be doing, especially from a bandwidth perspective. Like, I didn't realize just how little my bandwidth was, but now I'm actually able to think of things that help my clients, not just in the copy perspective, but now we're actually looking at like front end marketing, their offer, all that sort of stuff. And I'm able to actually consult on it and feel confident in it because my mind and my attention isn't being taken up by all these different elements. Like, I can just solely focus on them.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. Just being able to serve your clients better, right? Because I think what I've noticed with a lot of solopreneurs or freelancers I've known or worked with is sometimes what prevents them from hiring a team and scaling is they think the clients are going to get worse service, like no one can do this as good as me or whatever, right? Or they're just so used to working with the client. But really, like if you're stretched thin, you're not going to provide the best service because like you said, you're just focused on like doing the task, but you don't have the ability to step back and really think about what the client needs, look at the bigger picture, look at data, all of that, right? Or just spend more time in the relationship. So I think there's a lot to be said about that too.
No, 100%. It's funny because basically all of our clients that are doing 7, 8 figures have mentioned it to me as well, where when I talk to them about it, they're like, oh yeah, I never thought that anyone could do it better than me. And like, I have to take control of it and all that. And I get it. I have the same exact thought process that I, again, recently realized that I don't have to understand everything. I don't have to do everything. And if I'm actually outsourcing to experts, like you said, I get to serve clients in a better way. And it's the same thing for them. Is when they hired us, is they realize the same. It's like, wow, not only am I able to get more clients because you're taking care of that domain, but I get to serve our current clients, which grows LTV, grows their business overall, and grows their brand as well and their reputation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And there's also a lot to be said about just having one person that spends 100% of their time at something, right? Like that's the hard part I find about being an entrepreneur is you have to do a million things and just give like little bits of energy to it all. So even if like you hire someone and they're not as good as you, just the fact that they're putting like all their 40 hours into it is going to lead to a better result for the client, even if they're not as experienced.
I was listening to a podcast recently that mentioned that it's more of like a productivity aspect, but it's so relevant to entrepreneurship where if your calendar's stacked up with a lot of like 15, 30 minute, 45-minute tasks throughout the day, you're going to get very to little done. Whereas if you have an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hour blocked out and you're focusing on one thing. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. And again, same realization I've had with myself as a leader is that my sole responsibility is to bring together a core group of talent that's better and smarter than me to keep them on aligned vision and then to improve the product. That is, I would argue, the only roles that a leader should have in any company. And it's those three things. So the more you, again, stretch your bandwidth to all these other different things, you're taking away from the time from those three things, which is ultimately what's going to grow your business.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. So how's it been now? So you resisted having a team, having an agency for a while. Now that you've done it, now that you're really in it, like, how's that been for you? Just that experience of being, shifting into leadership.
It's been good. It's been a much better experience. I've learned a lot. I mean, again, I'm not a perfect leader. Like I've made mistakes and I'm lucky to have team members that actually call me out and then, help course correct. And that's the thing. I'm totally open to input and especially from people that are in the weeds. Like I know it's very frustrating as a service provider when you're doing something and you understand what you're doing, but then the client or someone else is trying to overpower you and convince you. Otherwise, it's like, no, that's not how it works. It's the same thing with my team. So, there's been some rough patches here and there, but overall, it's been a much better experience. I, again, enjoyed speaking to my team. I enjoy hopping on calls with them and guiding them whenever they need help. And it's just been a more pleasurable experience, especially with clients, because like I said, I'm able to dedicate more time to them and help them create strategies on a higher level rather than just like, okay, let's focus on the little thing of like email or something like that.
Yeah, definitely, man. And especially when you said that they call you out, like that's great. That's a sign of a great team member. Because I love when my team members call me out too. Because I think a lot of people, they like, if you don't have a really great culture, great relationship with your employees, they won't say that, right? They'll be too scared to say it to their boss. But the fact that they do really shows you built an awesome relationship with them and they're willing to be that open with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's honestly, it's something that I accidentally fostered, but I think it's the more you're willing to take feedback from other people, the more they're going to be open to actually giving it to you. Because if you just shut them down and again overpower someone else, then you're never going to get called out. And I think Ray Dalio also talks about in his book in principles, like I forgot what he said exactly, but it's just like radical transparency. I'm not at that level yet for sure, but yeah, the more transparent and upfront and honest everyone can be within the team, and especially with a leader, the further it's going to go. Because again, as a leader, you're not the smartest person, nor is that the goal. And that requires you to put your ego aside, especially when you hire people that are smarter than you, that are better than you in certain cases. So you just got to know when to lead and when to take feedback.
Yeah, man, totally with you. I mean, being the smartest person sucks because then everyone is constantly asking you for everything, right? And you can't even take a day off. It's better just to be kind of like the facilitator.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
Yeah, so then before we get into some of the call booking magic you do and the YouTube and email stuff, one other thing I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about this in Messenger recently. So you said you've shifted or you've had a realization in how you approach the agency game to focus more on like less clients, but going deeper with them, bigger clients, something we've been talking about a lot the last month or two on our podcast as well. So yeah, I wanted to hear more about that. Like what made you have that shift, or how are you approaching it differently now?
Yeah, so I'm still kind of teetering between the two thought processes. I've always been the kind to simplify it a little bit more. Like I'd much rather have a few clients that pay me a lot more. And there's multiple different opinions of this. I know agency owners that charge less, but then have a lot of clients, and it's great for LTV. You get great volume because you're charging so little. But I would rather position myself as like a premium service that not everyone can afford, and it's not meant for everybody. But again, like I mentioned earlier, one thing that drives me is just people. So if I'm able to have deeper relationships with our clients, that's what actually fires me up. And if I'm able to hop in a call with them and have a bigger picture view with them, again, that fires me up. If I have 20 clients, like I'm not going to be hopping in a call with every single client, helping them strategize big picture and everything. It's going to be much easier for me and my bandwidth to focus on a core 5, 6, maybe up to 10. That would really be pushing it. But I think more clients creates more complexity, and I might correct myself down the line, who knows, but that's just my perspective. And same thing with the team is like, I think I was also, when I made that statement, I was still in that mindset, like I don't want a big team because again, more team, more problems, more managerial stress comes with it. So we'll see. Yeah, like right now I'm optimizing for higher quality clients, but less of them, just for the sake of keeping things lean, keeping things simple, and then just being able to actually dedicate my time and attention to each person rather than, being the founder that never speaks to clients because they're too busy doing something else. I don't know. That's just like my perspective. Again, I might change that down the line, but I just enjoy having that connection with clients. That might be like the freelancer me talking, because I did do everything. I would hop on calls every week with my clients. And with a few of them, I've built a really deep relationship, and it's just like, I genuinely enjoy it. So.
Me too, man. That's one of my favorite parts of it. And that's always how, at least for the last 2 years, how I've shifted to running things. And I just think it kind of depends on what kind of person you are, right? Like if you're the kind of person that likes to, be able to build those relationships with a select few clients, be able to strategize with them, be available for them, right? Like be part of what they're doing, then that's fine, right? And there's some people are more like process driven where they don't really want to be doing that. And they would thrive having like 50 clients, 100 clients, paying a little bit and just working more on like the systems, the processes, managing the team. But it just kind of depends on who you are, which it takes a lot of time to figure out, right? But it gets clearer over time.
Yeah, that's something I've been dealing with a lot, is just figuring out what I want. And it's constantly going to change. So yeah, you just got to sort of lean into something at least and then let it develop over time, rather than sitting around not doing anything and just trying to figure out like, okay, what exactly wrong, what kind of business do I want? Just start moving, and then it's easier to pivot that way rather than if you're standing still.
Yeah, definitely, man. Honestly, for some reason, you would think it would be easy question to answer, but that's like the hardest question to answer is like, what do I want? It's like, I'm always asking myself that. It's, you get clear on it and then things change in your life and then you want something different. And it's like, why is this so hard for everyone to figure out just what they actually want in life or in their business? It's not
Yeah,
easy.
I know. No, not at all. I mean, I'm a person that always seeks growth, so it's especially hard for me because I think I want something and I'll achieve it. I'm like, oh, okay, actually, let's keep pushing this more. So I have to really
Yeah.
train myself to A, be patient, but then B, figure out what exactly do I want to focus on? What is the outcome that I'm looking to achieve? But then more importantly, what's the process that I'm going to follow to achieve that? Because that's where all the magic happens.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, let's dive into more of the secret sauce and yeah, tell me about this YouTube and email funnel.
So recently, we were a traditional like email marketing agency. We come in and set up all the email systems, set up the automations, write daily emails, and it worked really well. We had multiple big clients we worked with, generated them millions of dollars, throughout the years. The thing I realized though is that we actually ended up churning through a couple clients, and it's because there's a lot of factors outside of just email that make it work. And one big thing is the front end that these business owners had. A lot of the clients that we did churn, they had a decent sized list, but those leads hadn't heard from them in a long time. Maybe their lead magnet or whatever their front end funnel brought in kind of the wrong person. So we would either book absolutely no calls, and the list was just completely dead. And the problem is the leads wouldn't get refilled. So then we end up, it just wouldn't make sense to keep going because they weren't making any money. Or we would book calls, but then those calls wouldn't close. And I've realized that the sales team is really the issue. And even when I talk to those business owners, the sales team had a low close rate, but high no-show rate. And especially, reading the notes from the leads they were bringing in, it's very clear that it's the wrong lead that they're bringing in, all because the front end has full power over how the back end of your business operates. You can have a great promise on the front end. You can bring in all the, shit leads you want. Your business is not going to scale. The number of leads, honestly, at that point, does not matter. So I kind of went back and forth. I was like, okay, we need to take more control of the front end if we want to make the back end work. And I went back and forth around, webinar funnels, VSLs, all these, or even running ads for clients. And then one thing I've realized though is I personally always wanted to start a YouTube channel when I was younger, and I knew the power of YouTube. I mean, I watched Sam Ovens and I was like, wow, this guy's a massive brand. I never put two and two together until I spoke to one of our clients who actually does run his YouTube channel. And I was chatting with him because all of a sudden our emails, we started to pick up pace. When I first started working with them, we might have been generating 30, 40K a month with emails, decent extra amount of cash. We eventually grew that to 50, 60K a month. But then starting in November 2023, well, September 2023, we hit 94K, which was like a record from email just in 1 month. We kind of dipped in October, and then November, we crossed the 100K month mark. And then since November, now it's May, I'm pretty sure we're tracking to over 100K months at this point. We have not dipped below 100K per month. And I was talking to my client, I was like, we've been absolutely killing it. He's like, yeah, it's because we're generating 500 to 1,000 leads a week from YouTube going into the email list. And I was like, that's insane. That's more than most of our clients were generating. And all the other clients that we worked with were either running ads, Instagram shoutouts. Those are pretty much like the two big arms. Sure, organic was there, but it never generated the same kind of volume. But our client was doing this organically with YouTube. And the best part is those leads are always high intent because they're spending hours watching your content. They're developing that knowledge. Unlike the people that are just scrolling through and, they see an ad, click on it just because they're curious. No, these guys have spent time with the client without paying them, but just getting that goodwill built up. They join the email list, so now they're a lot more open to actually buying. So that's when 2 and 2 got put together in my mind, where I was like, okay, the front end, the key front end is YouTube. The best part about this is very few coaches and consultants are actually on the YouTube game. So that's when we pivoted, because VSLs, webinars, they work. Those are kind of like, they could be like middle funnel sort of processes. But if we're talking about top of funnel, YouTube is a great method to attract attention, but also nurture it. It can be used as a front end channel or a back end, where on the front end, people discover you, watch your videos, go through an opt-in process, and then go to the back end of the email and then get converted there. Or it could be a back end process where the lead finds you on social media ads, whatever. They book a call, but then they go and watch your YouTube videos because they're doing their due diligence, they're doing their research, and they end up binging your content, again, watching hours of that content. So by the time they jump on a call, they're pretty much pre-sold. They already have the know, like, and trust factor. So it's much easier. So YouTube has that flexibility. It has the advantage that it can create your own sort of little blue ocean, because it's very hard to compete with people that have YouTube channels because they're generating the traffic for free, whereas other coaches are paying for that same traffic on ads. So the leverage on YouTube is much higher, but also the barrier entry is also much higher. A lot of people aren't doing it because they think it's too hard. So yeah, that's what really caused me to pivot the direction we're going in, because long form, the pendulum is swinging. Long form is becoming even more important nowadays. Shorts went through their phase and they still work for generating attention, but people are not going to pay high ticket based on your shorts alone. They need things like podcasts, long form videos, long form content. And that's exactly what we provide, both on the front end and the back end.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of great points there. And yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, kind of like you said, like all views are not created equal, right? Just because you could get 10,000 views on a short or like a TikTok doesn't mean they're quality views. Like a lot of times it's just someone scrolling, they watch 2 seconds and like move on, don't even remember you, right? So there's definitely a lot to be said about the long form. And it's true what you said, like people do look you up. Like I think people underestimate how often people, like if they book a sales call with you, they're going to look you up. Like think about when you book a sales call, right? You're Googling the person's name or checking them out, right? And I think that's what's really special about YouTube and why I think it's so smart you made this shift, is because YouTube is really the only social media that like ranks a lot on Google, right? Like I post on Facebook, even if I get like 100 comments or whatever, like a lot of people commenting on it or reviewing it, it's gone like the next day, right? No one can find it online. And that's the same reason I got on YouTube like the last quarter of last year, is just because it has that long tail. So I only started doing my own YouTube 5-6 months ago, but I've been appearing on other people's YouTube as like a guest, doing an interview or whatever. And there's one video I did 2.5 years ago that got like 40,000 views. It was with this big influencer, Christo. And he had a big following. I was nobody then. I had like no following or anything. But I went on his channel to deliver a masterclass around cold outreach. And we got a bunch of clients from it like right away. But still to this day, 2 years later, every so often I'll have someone reach out to me. They'd be like, hey, I watched that video you did 2.5 years ago. Really loved it. I would love to chat with your team about doing this for my business, right? So it's just like, I've been seeing that more and more over time. And I was like, holy fuck, like there's something amazing here, that people can actually find you videos from years ago. Meanwhile, everything else I do on social media is just like gone within a day. And it's just this like constant churn of new effort,
Yep. Yeah, you nailed it. Again, YouTube adds leverage that other social media platforms don't, not only just in like, again, the know, like, and trust factor, because it's long form. You basically open up the kimono usually on those YouTube videos and you talk as you are. You're not putting on a show. Maybe sometimes you are, but like it's more authentic than just scrolling through a reel that's completely scripted. That's totally like you being above and beyond. Like you said, also the life cycle of that content that you create, it's more of like, that quote digital real estate that you're making, not just throwing something in the air and it disappearing. And it's the same thing with ads. Everything fatigues. Organic content that you produce, like you said, dies out within 24, 48 hours. Or if the algorithm picks it up, it might survive for like a week or two. Then it's dead. Then you're forced to think of, okay, like what other banger can I create and put out? Same thing with ads. You're relying on capital, which to actually keep running it, to keep it relevant, but then same thing, eventually it fatigues. And then again, you're forced to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's working. YouTube's completely different. There's 2 reasons to this. One, people are more intentional with actually creating a content with YouTube because they know it's going to survive longer. There's just something, again, because of that authenticity, because of the depth that you go into, it's able to maintain its relevancy longer. But 2, YouTube has like a growth focused algorithm, because social media platforms will typically share your stuff. They'll prioritize sharing your stuff with your audience, and it won't always grow beyond that. And it can be very hard to grow. Whereas YouTube, the way its algorithm works is it presents it to your audience. If you hit certain KPIs, then it presents it to the casual audience, which is people that have the same interests as you, but they don't know who you are. If you hit KPIs there too, then it reaches the cold audience, which that's when you're competing with completely irrelevant niches and competing with some of the top videos out there. So the reach grows a lot. And yeah, like you said, you can put a video from 2 years ago and still see results today. Iman does the same thing. He shot a video 2 years ago, something about the best business to create. And he just links people back to, like in the description, he leads people to an opt-in page to his offer. And to this day, this video has 8.9 million views, if not like 9 million views, which would be very hard to achieve the same sort of reach with paid ads that cost a lot. But also, The video was posted 2 years ago, but in its title, it says 2024. So he just changes the year in the title. So he's able to repurpose it. And he wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't working. So that's what I mean by like building digital real estate. Like these are assets that survive longer than the time it takes to create them. Unlike with, you could put an hour into, I've heard so many people talk about this, where they put in such a long time writing a Facebook post or whatever that they think is going to be so good, and then it flops. And they're like, okay, well, shit. YouTube's complete opposite. But if you put more time into it, it's always going to generate a greater return for you, especially like over the long run.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing you said around how a lot of these other platforms, they just show you to the same people. Because I always see, like, even as my audience grows, it's mostly the same people who comment, right? But with YouTube, with the podcast, it's definitely different. Yeah, and then also, kind of like you were alluding to, with long form, they can really get to know more about who you are. I think the thing is, people are just, they get more and more skeptical over time, right? We've all been burned by marketers, right? The market's more sophisticated now, and people aren't as willing to just believe your claim or like, just soak up your VSL webinar and just trust you based on that, right? But the thing is, with long form content, you can't fake your expertise. When someone's really sitting with you, listening to a whole podcast, watching your YouTube channel, they know that you're legit. And nowadays, it's not enough just to tell someone you can help them or make claims. People are more skeptical. They want to know, like, can this person actually help me, or are they actually legit? And even if it's not YouTube, even if it's like a long form blog post or podcast, whatever, just long form in general, I think it's so powerful because like there's just that full trust. You can't fake an hour of good content, right? Like they actually get to see what's going on and just build that credibility, which short form content can't really do.
Exactly. I mean, what people don't realize is, very few coaches and businesses that we've worked with realize that people do their due diligence. They'll search you up. I've worked with a couple of coaches that we've booked calls, but then they just don't close. Like, again, I've talked about this earlier where no-show rates are high and whatever. It's because at the end of the day, that person doesn't believe that that coach is the person that can help them. They clicked on the ad because it looked cool. It sounded cool. They got curious, but they never thought that like, oh, this guy's not a true authority. This guy's not the guy. I'm just going to hop on a call because I'm curious. I just want to get more information. Basically mentally masturbate the idea of joining. And that's the thing is like, you can't create that sort of authority unless you have like an ecosystem, especially of long form content that people just get hooked onto and just keep watching. So I totally agree. And people constantly will compare you to everything else. They'll not only compare you to other competitors who offer similar things, but they'll also see like, can this person actually provide the solution that I need? Because a lot of the solutions out here in the marketing space are the same, like we just package it differently. But when you watch that long form content, that person gets to figure out the exact nuance of like, how are you different from everybody else? Both you personally and the solution that you provide. And then are you able to connect to this person? And is this the right solution for me? If it's both a yes, that instantly gives the certainty to that person to get hooked onto you to buy your offer because nobody else is able to match that.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I totally agree. And I think the key part is, like you said, they connect with you, right? Because like you said, we are mostly selling, as an agency, you're mostly selling the same thing as other people, right? Just packaged differently, but it comes down to the same kind of core ingredients. But why people buy it is mainly just because they like you, like they trust you as their guy. Like we're in the relationship business more than anything else, right? Because there's thousands of other agencies that could be doing the same thing, but it's really a big part of who they connect with, who they feel good about. And long form is a great way to do that.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of offers out there that are commoditized, but you can never commoditize a brand. Anybody can copy Apple and basically produce the second iPhone, but no one's going to buy from it because it's Apple. They're going to go to the source.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man, I think just in general with the way the industry's shifting, right? Like people are getting a little bit more burned out by just the typical direct response marketing. So I just think in general, like brand, content, long form, building trust is only going to become more and more important. So getting into the strategy of it, like someone listening, they want to get started with, okay, so YouTube for the front end to bring in leads, high quality leads, high intent leads, email for the back end. What are some of the first steps they should take? Or let's say you're taking on a new client. What exactly would you be kind of getting into with, steps, first few steps, best practices, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so typically what we do is we'll bring in a client and we'll kind of run them through two separate onboarding processes because we're building out kind of two infrastructures within their business. So on the front end with YouTube is we'll basically get clear on exactly, okay, who is your market that you're serving? Get hyper clear on that because if we miss the mark, then again, the front end gets completely messed up and then we're not able to generate money in the back end. And then also we'll start mapping out different trends. Like we'll look at who's similar in the YouTube space that's already doing or providing something similar to you, let's see what's working, the classic marketing thing, doing your market research, seeing what's working, what's not. And then we'll go out and then we'll choose different video days and then script them out. And then all our client has to do is record the video, and then we'll do the SEO, we'll do the thumbnails, we'll do all the editing just to maintain the retention. So we'll optimize for the actual click-through rate so that people land on the page and watch the video, but then the retention of it. Those are like the two big KPIs on YouTube. So that's what we do. Again, it would be pretty much the same process if you were to do this yourself. Figure out exactly what market you want to serve. Go and basically do your market research. Who's doing something similar to you on YouTube? What videos are working for them? And then create your own version of that. And then start posting content. There's that side of it on the front end. On the back end with email, same thing. We'll kind of run them through our own onboarding process. There we kind of get, again, we're still getting clear on the market, but then we're also getting clear on what are your offers. Like we'll go through what I call like a pre-mortem audit. So pre-mortem as in before things go wrong, what solutions can we create? Because a lot of offers are built on like, what do you think that the client needs, or what do you think is going to sound good? Whereas in reality, you got to figure out, okay, your customer is in point A right now. They want to get to point B. What are all of the steps, or what are all of the causes of failure between point A and point B? And then create the solutions for those causes of failures. That's at the end of the day how you build that offer. So we'll kind of go through that process with them, figure everything out, and just basically tweak their offer if it needs tweaking and improve it. And then, yeah, same thing. We'll make sure that on the email side, everything is compliant, deliverability is all set up so that, we don't, again, mess up our opportunity to monetize them back end. Set up all the automations between like the automatic calendar filler, which is just setting up automations that people go through that automatically books calls into your calendar. You can just run that and you will still get calls booked. You don't have to do anything manually. But then we'll also go in and create conversion sequences and nurture sequences, which are just like the actual day-to-day emails that we'll send out that, like it sounds like, nurture the audience, but then at the end convert them into book a call, into a low ticket offer, whatever it is. So again, like that's what we do, but it would be the same process of you doing it yourself. Is just make sure that you're compliant on email, set up some of the automations that you can book calls automatically, and then just email a list. It's pretty simple, but there's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah, definitely. So getting to some of the nuance, what do you find is the best balance? And it maybe depends a little bit on the client based on their goals, if they focus more on brand or trying to use it as a conversion channel. But what's the balance you typically recommend for someone? Like how much should they promote versus how much should they just have value-based emails?
Yeah, so this depends on your goals and as well as how many leads you're actually bringing into your list. So if you're not bringing in that many leads into your list, you're going to want to prioritize the brand side and promote less, because the problem is if you go hard with promoting, you're going to burn your list out and then the result is going to end up getting cut off. And I'll just be fully transparent. That's actually what happened with one of our clients, where we had a list, we re-engaged them and whatnot. We had a small pro list that we started emailing, but then the problem we ran into is the calls just all of a sudden stopped getting booked. And that's because we just weren't refilling the list with leads enough. So that's what I made that mistake. And that's what created this insight, is like, it just depends on the cadence. So in that case, focus on brand more. Honestly, either way, I would always err on the side of focus on brand more, because it's just a long-term play. It's going to work over a longer course of time. I've had clients that, prioritize on the conversion side more. So we would send multiple pitches a day. We'd send multiple emails a day, and we would actually pitch more than we would nurture. And again, if you're bringing in a ton of leads every single week, that's going to work well, because you're kind of cycling through people. The ones that are burning out are leaving, but then new ones are coming in. But again, that has a short life cycle. You're not really building a solid asset there. You're just basically building an asset that's just bound to die out. Like if your ads stop working, if your front end stops working, your list is going to die. So yeah, if you're going to take anything away from this, focus more on nurturing, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make the conversion easier. And yeah, if your goals are, it doesn't matter whether your goal is to scale or whether to build a brand, just focus on the person, focus on providing value, entertaining them, and showing off your personality and showing proof of what you do works. And even if you're not promoting or pitching, people are going to eventually get impatient to reach out to you and ask you more about your stuff. And that's when you have, again, higher leverage when it comes to sales.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, man. And are there any different types of emails, like in terms of content types? I remember you walked me through a couple of things like aspirational, inspirational. What are some good like formats people can follow with their stuck on ideas?
Yeah. So we have we have 7 different types of emails that we send. To keep it simple, there's really only about 3 that I would say that really matter. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that, work the best. And these are best for nurture and conversion as well. So like we talked about earlier, where aspirational based emails, which is where I call them like hope based emails. This is kind of like the Rocky Balboa story of you sharing, really vulnerable stories, but then sharing the lesson that you learned and how you overcame that. You don't want to just create a pity party and just whine and complain in that email, because then you're losing authority. You're telling a story, you're getting people to connect with you, but then you're also getting a tangible lesson that they can learn. So they're getting best of both worlds. The second email is educational based emails. These are very, self-explanatory. It's just the value-based emails that you send out to teach people certain concepts that they may not know about, or again, why your offer, why your solution works, why it's better than other solutions, why the things that they've done previously hasn't worked, that kind of stuff. And then the last one is proof-based emails. And those are just emails that you show testimonials, case studies, whatever it is. You basically show wins from your community, from your clients, to again, show that whatever you're talking about in those emails, your clients are implementing and it's working. So you're creating that almost like FOMO. And that's also sort of the last piece of the certainty that people need is like, okay, cool, you're talking about all this. It sounds good in theory, but now here's the tangible proof of if it works for this guy, why can it work for me?
Awesome, man. Yeah, super useful, super practical. And then one of the things that comes to my mind if we're thinking about like getting started with email is the welcome emails, right? So what would you advise for someone to set up as far as like an onboarding sequence, indoctrination, the first couple emails they'd send out?
Yeah. So same thing. I would actually follow the exact same structure, except so the first email, you always want to pay off of what these people opted in for. So give them exactly what they opted in for, whether it's training, lead magnet, whatever. That's all. But then I'd run through the exact same structure I just went over, create an aspirational based email, an education based email, and a proof email, and just run them through that. And that's it. One little hack that I thought was actually very smart. I never thought about this, but you don't need some like long ass welcome sequence when you first get started. Just build out a couple emails and that's it. But as time goes on, and this is why sort of the daily emails that we do is so important, because at the end of the day, we're just generating data and seeing what's working, what's not, especially coming from the sales team. We'll talk to them, see what's working, what's not, or what the prospect's saying, and then we'll implement that on our end. And when you're getting that data, you're able to see, again, which email has been the best one, which one has booked the most calls, which one got the best response, tack that onto your welcome sequence. And eventually over time, then you can build out a welcome sequence that has your initial emails, but then all the best performing emails. And at that point, you might get to a point where it's like a 7 or 14-day sequence that puts your prospects through the best emails ever. So you start off on the best foot possible, create the highest chance possible of them actually responding to you and booking a call. And if they don't, no worries. Then they get your daily emails. But you get the highest chance possible of them actually converting within those 7 to 14 days of them joining. But I would just start with a couple emails at first. Don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, keep it simple. That is a juicy tip to go back and look at the biggest hits, the best winners. I'm definitely going to this week go back and look at all our best emails and tag those on. That's a really good idea.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a smart one.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I love talking about this and appreciate you coming on to share all the insights. Everyone listening, don't sleep on YouTube. Take it seriously. Another thing Dan mentioned earlier that I wanted to highlight is you said that there's a high barrier to entry, right? Which is why a lot of people don't do it. But that means if you do it, it's a lot easier, right? Because no one else is doing it. And, there is a barrier to entry. It takes a little bit of time to get comfortable on camera, get the setup, but just like anything, it's quick to learn. And then you just 80-20, right? You just need to know a couple things about audio, a couple things about video. Get your first 10 videos done. They'll be shitty. They'll be awkward. My first 10 videos, if you look at my YouTube channel, were definitely really cringe, right? But you get past that, then you're pretty much good to go. And then you're ahead of the game. YouTube is actually the social media channel that has the biggest gap between creators versus consumers, right? So there's compared to Instagram, right? Everyone has an Instagram, right? But very few people have a YouTube compared to the amount of people that actually consume on it, right? So basically, if you think about it, there's just that supply and demand that's way in your favor. So definitely advise everyone to take Dan's advice, get on YouTube, get the backend email set up, and be off to the races.
Yeah, dude. YouTube at the end of the day is an education platform. So it's a super smart channel to implement because, again, going back to Iman's examples, some of his videos are straight up just VSLs, but they're on YouTube, but people don't see it because it's an education platform. That's the way they view it. They think it's all educational. And it's just hilarious because they'll skip the ads that pop up on that video to watch the real ad, which is his video. So yeah, you can use it in both ways. And I totally agree with you about this supply and demand thing. It's the reason to not do YouTube is the same reason why you should do YouTube. And it's going to separate yourself completely from everyone else.
That's a really good point too about how it basically hides the sales process, right? Because people think they're being educated, and they are. But yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, man. Well, really appreciate that you come on the show. It's great to chat and dive into it. Definitely have to do it again sometime. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, learn from you, or even work with you to set this up?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and Twitter. My handle is the exact same, Dan Bagniuk, Bagniuk. I'm also just getting on YouTube as well. So you can find me there. You can basically find me on all social media platforms, Instagram as well. So yeah, just reach out. We'll chat. I do have like a full-on breakdown as to how our client is booking 100 to 400 calls a month with the YouTube and email funnel. So I dive a little bit deeper into why that funnel works, how it works, all that sort of good stuff. So yeah, if you want to ask that, just reach out to me on social media and I'll give it to you.
Sweet. Yeah. For everyone listening to the podcast, we'll link it down below. All right, man. Well, great to have you. And thanks again for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.